All right.
All right.
Go ahead and talk a little bit.
Okay, thanks. So, everybody ready for CPRG? Yes? You guys excited? All right. This is a little bit different of a presentation. It's a think tank. Did anybody know that coming in here? No. All right. You guys are all part of this presentation. I need your help to generate these ideas, see what you guys are doing. So my name is Ryan Eberle. I'm the Air Program Manager for Gila River Indian Community. I've got a couple of staff in here. Tyson Gills, our outreach specialist, and Ibatola Gangan. So she's actually going to be taking this over for me, hopefully in the next, well, right now, I hope. So has anybody been part of a think tank before? So we got one expert in the room. All right. So let's go to the next slide. What I want to do is kind of as we hit these slides, get ideas from you guys. What are you planning to do? And we're going to add those into these bullets. So some of these are just primer questions to get the discussion flowing. And I think we have a second mic that we can pass around. And we'll see how this all works, okay? So, CPRG grants. Who has one here? Okay, so not very many of you guys. Why are the rest of you in here? You guys are just curious about CPRG. All right. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, does that work? So I stole this from one of EPA's documents, and I apologize. Some of the lettering doesn't come out on this presentation, but we've got the PCAP, which is the Priority Climate Action Plan. Who submitted one of these back in whenever that was, March, April? Okay, so a couple of you guys. So once we've got the Priority Climate Action Plan done, now we're moving to the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. So as the name implies, comprehensive means a lot more stuff. So we've got these extra items in here. So we've got five original elements. I'm not even going to be able to see this. We've got stakeholder engagement, greenhouse gas inventory, quantified. There we go. All right, well, we're going to see how this works this way. Quantified greenhouse gas reduction measures, benefits analysis, and the authority to implement. So as we move over into the comprehensive climate action plan, we've got a few extra additions in here that we've got to work on. Intersection with other federal funding, projections for your greenhouse gases, targets, reduction targets that you want to get down to, and workforce analysis. In addition, some of these other ones can also be refined, especially this greenhouse gas inventory. Who's done any kind of an emission inventory in here? About the same people, okay. Ooh, this is a little tough to read here. Sorry for that. So what I was attempting to do is kind of show the ones in black here, which was from the Priority Climate Action Plan, and then these additional yellow items in here, which are for the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. Okay, so we're just going to kind of roll down this list. Comprehensive Greenhouse Gas Emission Inventory. So what has changed from your original greenhouse gas inventory? What additional measures can you put in your comprehensive emission inventory? Now, I've thrown up a few of these just from our experience, some of the things that I know I want to change. Actual records from utility providers. So for those of you guys who are in the room, I don't know if we've got that mic we can pass around. When you guys did your initial emission inventory, were you guys using the utility records? How were you guys getting those numbers for your like electrical generation, things like that?
Who's doing it?
So we had already conducted a solar feasibility plan for our tribe. And so within that solar feasibility plan, we already had generated data that was averages for our community members' electricity use. It wasn't based I would say it was slim, right? It was a very small pool. So for us, one thing we can look at is like how to get a better average, because I think it was 14 households.
That was our biggest issue, was getting homeowners to give us authorization to get their energy usage. So based off our reservation, we just took in, like I said, 14 houses and just multiplied that by however many houses we had.
Okay.
Did you want to say something?
Anybody else? Rob?
Oh.
Okay. So I think on Gila River Indian Community, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 people living on reservation. I don't know what that translates into number of homes, maybe 6, probably less than 6,000. When we got the records, we have, I think, 3 utility providers on the community. One of them is the community enterprise, which serves a majority of the electrical services on the community, and then we have 2 other public utilities. We actually got records from them. They gave us a spreadsheet of all the different households, and it was just by address. The casinos, any meter that was there, they gave us the record. Then we had to go through and decide which ones were industrial, which ones were commercial, which ones were residential. And some of that you can kind of tell by the usage. And I think it was broke out by month and then a total for each one. So we got pretty lucky on that one. Any other suggestions on utility providers about how to get more accurate information while we're on this? Okay. Vehicles traveled. So this is for our emission inventory, this was by far the biggest piece of greenhouse gas emissions. And not very much of this, we suspect, is due to the tribe's vehicle use. It's all the through traffic for 2 or 3 main state highways that go, we're just on the south side of Phoenix. So there's a couple other communities that are south of our community that it's all commuter traffic. So one of the things that we got pretty lucky with is getting the vehicle miles traveled from the Department of Transportation for the state. So they actually had a lot of this information they sent to us. It does not include any of the roads, for the most part, that are on community. So our next, I guess, challenge is to figure out what is that vehicle miles traveled on the community. We thought maybe we could talk to the tribal DOT. They might have some information. BIA might have some information. What about you guys? Any other thoughts on how you can get that transportation specific item for the greenhouse gas inventory? Has anybody ever reached out to BIA to get traffic counts?
Pretty sure they don't have it.
At least not for us.
Okay. All right.
We did household surveys.
Household surveys?
At community events, asking the households, like how many, sorry. Okay. We did community surveys at a couple of our outreach events and collected information on how many vehicles and types of vehicles per household there were, and then approximate miles traveled. You know, it's not exact. One problem we're in a very rural, and we only have about 152 households roughly on the reservation. But some of these other records that when we go to the CPRG webinars and they discuss how you can pull these data sets up, they don't seem applicable to when we do our reduction measures. How are you going to use that data to actually show that your tribal community is making an impact? It's not a direct correlation when you look at the regional data sets that they're asking us to refer to. It doesn't make sense in my mind. So our surveys we used, and again, created averages to fill in the gaps
Okay.
per household.
That's a good idea, surveys.
And then moving forward off of that, because we wanted more accurate numbers, we're in the phase of updating our master transportation plan. And so we're going to do a traffic audit in addition to that. So that's where we have better numbers moving forward.
Okay, cool. So who does that traffic audit? Is that, you guys have a Department of Transportation or?
Yeah, we have TTPS funds and we're going to contract that out to, I think they're called Red Plains.
Okay, okay. How many of you guys have like a tribal fleet department?
We have a tribal fleet department that works on our vehicles, but as far as like the traffic counts go, I actually had to do that myself by putting the lines out in the road and,
You did?
and a little counter.
Okay. So, Daryl, how many roads do you guys have? I mean, did you do one road, two roads, and then just kind of upscale it, or?
We have a highway that goes right through the reservation, and then a couple of roads that lead out of the reservation, like into Temecula. So I just grabbed the main roads to see what's coming in and out.
Okay, cool. One of the challenges we had with getting initially for the PCAP, the fuel consumption for the tribal fleet vehicles, I don't know, I can't remember how many vehicles Gila River has, but I want to say it's somewhere near 1,000. And to try to get that information actually which is held in our finance department, that was going to take too long for that. So we need to start that process now to get it.
I had a question for your method. So with that, how are you calculating the miles traveled or types of vehicles, right? Because when we enter it in the calculator.
Well, the stuff that like you were talking about, how you were surveying the community on types of vehicles. It's hard for us to really determine like what's coming onto the reservation. We have a casino on the reservation, so we get a lot of traffic from outside of the reservation coming to visit. So the best capable thing that we were able to do was just basically counting 2-axle vehicles where the line, if you get 2 hits on the line, it's 1 vehicle. But then just saying that, a huge percentage of those are probably going to be gas vehicles. So
you were more concerned about whether or not it's 2-axle vehicles or 3-axle vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, when it gets to like you doing like larger vehicles that have more than 1 axle, then pretty much the visual.
Yeah.
Yeah, fleet mix is the other challenge to this, because you need to assign different vehicle sizes and fuel consumption or miles per gallon to each of the vehicles. That's another challenge. And I think for us, we're split between Pinal County and Maricopa County. So 2/3 of our reservations in one county and the thirds in another county. And they really have different fleet mixes that they're using for their numbers. So we kind of picked a more rural, because we thought more of the vehicles coming through the reservation are going from a rural part of the one county into the metro Phoenix area. All right. And any other additions to greenhouse gas? The other thing I've got up on there is sinks or forests. That's a way to actually kind of reduce greenhouse gases. I don't know if anybody's had any experience with using it. If we don't really have much of a forest. Nobody. You guys have?
I don't know how accurate. I'm trying to. Oh, I want to say it was tree canopy that I just recently came across. So basically, it does random points within your reservation boundaries, and it will just like ping different points on the map, and then you identify whether it's a tree or shrub, or if it's a road or a building. And you want to get, at least for our sake, we did about 1,000 points. And then it came up with an average of carbon storage.
Okay.
And that was.
Tree
I
canopy?
think it was tree canopy. I'll look for it right now
Okay.
and then correct myself if it's
Yeah,
wrong.
thanks. All right, so one of the new ones that we've got to put in there for the comprehensive plan is the greenhouse gas emission projections. So we need to look at near term, which is in the next, thank you, next 5 or 10 years. And then we need to look at long term, which is by 2050. Now, these aren't hard and fast. These are kind of EPA suggestions. We also need to look at with and without implemented plans. So if any of you have all read emission EIS or emission, what do they call those? Environmental impact statements. They'll often talk about, hey, if we don't do this traffic plan, here's how the air quality is going to degrade. So they have like a no implementation scenario. So that's kind of what I envision this being, with and without your reductions. So what kind of things affect your future greenhouse gas emissions? So you look at what you're putting into that. You've got utilities, you've got, which is a lot of that's all tied back to population. You got commuter traffic, are the towns that are kind of, for the commuters that are going from this town, for us, south of us, is that town going to grow? And most likely, yes. So what other enterprises or businesses are going to be relocating to your community? And then what's your government doing? Is your government planning on growing? Is it planning on kind of staying the same? So all these are kind of inputs that would go into those future greenhouse gas emissions. Now, anybody have anything else that they've thought of that might affect these greenhouse gas emissions and whether they're going to be increasing or decreasing?
More along the lines for the sinks. One of the biggest issues that we're facing on our reservation is GSOB, and our oak groves are dying. So, if this continues for the same progress for the next 15, 20 years, there's a good chance that we might lose 85% of our oaks, which is going to severely impact our carbon sink and our carbon credits. So that's another thing that we're looking into and planning on doing, like reforestation projects to kind of help combat that.
Are there other, is there other vegetation that's taking their place?
Yeah, but not with the same beneficial use. Okay. A lot of the stuff that's coming in is like encroaching chaparral or grasslands. A lot of times, the trees on the canopy can't reestablish because we have those dead trees sitting there. So one of the things that we're also doing is cutting our stumps down to 6 inches from ground level and trying to propagate new growth from the stumps.
Okay, cool. Anybody else have any ideas about greenhouse gas projections? What might affect them in the future? No? Okay. So another new one is reduction targets. So this one's a little bit of a challenge. And did anybody go to that workshop, I guess, they had in Minnesota? Couple months, it was back in September, I think. So, boy, we're getting down to just like one hand now. Just stop asking questions. All right, so one of the challenges, how do you know what your greenhouse gas targets, what your community wants in 10 years or 50 years? How do you know where you're going? When I was at this conference, and this didn't come out too well, but I attended one of these sessions on kind of goal setting for your targets. And it was this, I couldn't even tell you who created it. But there's a bunch of questions in here that kind of help steer that conversation toward how you want to set your targets. One of the challenges we have is, I'm not a community member. And so how do I understand where the community wants to go? And I don't even know if the community knows where they want to go. Does the population even know about greenhouse gas emissions? So these are all things that we've been kind of thinking about. And I've got another slide toward the end that talks about a strategy that we're looking at to actually help us set our goals. Does anybody have any, you guys that are working on your CCAPs, are you guys looking at goals? How do you know where you're going?
I'm drafting them currently, and I'm just using right now, prior to taking them to the community, the measures that we developed during the PCAP included, like, if you had a, decrease, or let's say increase electric vehicles or something, right? You could calculate the emissions reduction based on that measure in the PCAP. So I'm using those numbers that we had in the chart as just a baseline. It's a little bit of a shot in the dark right now, but at least it's something that I've wrapped my brain around. So you then can communicate that to other people, and then in the community, they can give feedback. We have general council meetings where the community comes and, is updated on things that are going on or brings their concerns to tribal council. And so that's one platform to present at and, offer up these possible targets and find what's important to the community. So yeah, using the PCAP numbers is where I'm starting with the targets.
We're like in the process of using some federal funding for switching over to solar and battery backup on like some of our main infrastructure on the reservation. So it's going to permit us to do like install more EV charging and possibly like start switching over our fleet from petroleum to electric. And we're also trying to encourage like more of the electrics to come on to the reservation by offering EV charging at the casino and our fuel stations and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is John Flores from San Pasqual Reservation. When you're talking about community goals, the way I look at it is very simple. They may not know exactly what greenhouse gas emissions are, but they know what their monthly utility bill is. And so if you just say, I'm just going to put solar and battery on your home and it's going to reduce your home or reduce your energy utility bill, that's something generally most people are going to support. So we look at it from not so much as a GHG for the community. I mean, I look at that because I'm the environmental director and that's the goal. But my community members understand dollars and cents. So if I'm proposing something that's going to reduce their utility, bill, they're going to be on board with that, regardless of how much GHG they're reducing. Like that's the secondary aspect to the residents for the most part. So that's how we set our goals, is basically what are we going to do that will benefit our community members in terms of putting money back in their pockets, back in the tribal economy and keeping that money on the reservation, then going to the utility. So yeah, solar. And then the other benefit to the community for solar and battery, because we live in a high fire danger, is public safety power shutoffs. So it's like, okay, I'm going to save you money. And in the event the grid goes down, you're going to also have energy during a crisis. So you look at money, resiliency, and then the environmental savings kind of last, honestly, in terms of the community. That's my pitch to the community, and that seems to get the buy-in for them. And then, yeah, EVs too, right? Like $5 a gallon for gas right now in San Diego. So how about we do solar and battery? And even better, we do a vehicle to grid. So now you have a car that's actually a backup generator that can also power up your home during a power shutoff event. So you start wrapping these things in and they start seeing all these benefits, and then it's an easier sell to your community.
Thanks. All right, next item is the quantified reduction measures. This was originally in the PCAP. So, for us, I don't know that this is necessarily going to change. However, this is really meant to include sort of everything. Solar, fleet electrification, which we've already kind of touched on, building efficiencies, any other ideas for like measures to actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Anybody look at like sidewalk installation? We got, what's that? Biking, yeah.
Solid waste, did anybody look at solid waste management? set of, anything diverted to composting, things diverted to composting, recycling, source reduction of solid waste also could count towards these. I don't know if anybody has incorporated those into either their PCAP or their CCAP, but those are eligible activities as well. So if you're doing composting, you can get credit for it and get money for it.
Yep, composting. Any other ideas? Shade trees to encourage walking. Does anybody have a walkable community? Couple?
So that's one thing we have developed a community plan to put in. We're not calling them sidewalks because a lot of people associate that with like the city and they don't want sidewalks, but we call them trails.
Yeah.
And so it's all about how you market it, yes, to the people. And so marketing, and then the trail too, that's large enough to accommodate something like a horse, if you want to ride a horse, because we're in a rural community. And then, yeah, like you said about shade trees, we've talked about that, like lining the community, the roads with, oak trees to grow in the future. The shade trees are a little bit difficult though with residential because we're trying to do solar. So then you have shade trees, but then it's going to shade the solar, right? So that's kind of a difficult one to sell to people because they don't complement each other. But shade trees along the roadways and along the trailways is good. So that's what we're trying to do.
I like trails. You have to remember that one. We've got a big spot of undeveloped sort of land just adjacent to ours. And if you look at the aerial view, there's all these lines going through this to the different, where people would come from and go to. They've kind of made their own trails because it's a lot to walk all the way around and follow the road as opposed to just kind of going through one area. So I like that. Thank you. All right, benefits analysis. This is really focused on those co-pollutants. So when you have greenhouse gas emissions, most likely is from the combustion of fossil fuels, but there are other sources. But you also have these other pollutants that are emitted. So you've got PM 2.5, you've got NOx, you've got SO2, VOCs, and HAPs. Anybody looked at what was your process to kind of look at these co-pollutants and think about reducing co-pollutants?
Not really a process, but a study right now, because we just allowed a company to set up composting on the reservation. And I noticed during the summer that there was a little bit of a spike in my ozone. So I'm kind of curious to see what VOCs are coming off of this now. But I'm not entirely sure that it's being affected from that, because they do have some proper safety stuff in place for venting the compost piles and trying to reduce the VOCs. But there is another method that they could use that's probably going to be more expensive if they are emitting a lot of VOCs. So that's where I'm at with that.
So composting might be a disbenefit because you might have some other emissions that are coming off that compost that might be actually increasing emissions for co-pollutants.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, because I know the method that they're using right now is just an affordable method to reduce the VOCs. But if it turns out that they are causing the pollutants to go up, then I have to let them know that they have to switch to the other type of mitigation.
Okay. So I think what we looked at during the PCAP is we said, hey, if a lot of these greenhouse gas emissions are coming from combustion, if I reduce my combustion by, or at least greenhouse gases from combustion by 50% or whatever the number is, right? I'm also probably going to reduce these other emissions by the same percentage because you're just burning that much less fuel. So when you burn fuel, the emissions are for the most part the same. There's some minor variations in when you change the efficiency of the fuel burn. But I was curious to see if anybody had any other ways of looking at co-pollutant reductions. And again, if you're doing something with wastewater, that's it's not going to work with that because it's a little bit different of a mix. All right, authority to implement. I misread this really the first time. When we did our PCAP, I just assumed that Gila River had the authority to implement everything, right, that we were proposing. Thank you. But that's probably not entirely true, at least at the governmental level. There's different departments that are going to have their buy-in. So if we do solar, a lot of the homes that are built on the community are actually purchased or built by the community, and the community owns the home. The residents pay for the utility bill. So we have to get different departments involved for authority to implement. We've got the electrical company or companies that really need to be part of that discussion as well. If we're putting in solar, we've got service upgrades we got to do. A lot of times they're going to have to change out possibly transformers. So it's really just a bigger discussion than just the government implementing it for the government solutions. We've got to bring in all these different stakeholders and get their buy-in. So anybody else have thoughts on different agencies that they need to get authorities from to implement some of these measures? Just thinking about it. All right. Move on to the next one. I'm going to skip EPA's section real quick here so that we can kind of, we'll come back to the intersection with the other funding. Workforce planning analysis. This is another challenge. I mean, as everybody starts to implement this stuff, there's going to be drain on the resources. The actual construction workers that are needed, the companies that can actually do the work. What about your own management of this project? Like everybody's got day jobs, right? And so you're adding another percentage of work onto you. Well, you can hire somebody, but now you're competing with, who other different project managers. You can try to steal somebody from other departments, which sometimes works in your favor. So other thoughts on workforce planning?
I would just say on workforce planning at San Pasqual, what we're looking at doing is including other departments, right? And including them early on in the process so that they consider themselves part of the stakeholders. And then also they get part of the kudos, success, accolades of the community. So we're working with our housing department because we understand that a lot of these are going on homes. And our housing department already has a relationship with a lot of the home owners on the reservation. We're working with our public works department. We're working with our planning department, things like that to get them involved. So we're going to make a little committee that we all divvy up the task internally with the reservation staff on, and then hopefully hire someone to be the ringleader of the whole thing. And then, on authority too, the last thing we're looking at converting our fleet vehicles as well, which we view it as a way to show the community that you can get an electric vehicle and you're not gonna just have a brick sitting on the side of the road on the reservation. So, think of your tribal leadership and influencers who might have a vehicle that you want. So we're getting our chairman a Cybertruck so that he can roll around in a Cybertruck. Now people laugh, but there's keeping up with the chairman type of stuff going on the reservation, where if you see your chairman doing it, the people that have the money on the reservation think I'm just as good as the chairman and deserve a Cybertruck, or that they see that the chairman can drive and believe in an electric vehicle, then what, I can probably get an electric vehicle. So, as far as the Cybertruck goes, I tell people beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But the one thing it is, you can't miss it, right? So if you want a vehicle that's going to stand out, that everyone's going to know is an electric vehicle, everyone knows that's an electric vehicle. Whereas opposed to some of the other Bolts and stuff just look like another car on the road. So if they were to remake Back to the Future, it would probably have a Cybertruck as the new DeLorean. So think of the iconic images too when we're doing this stuff. So there's a public relations component to what we're trying to do as well, and try to factor that into when you're doing your work.
I think we're going to get the Rivian for our chairman.
One of the other things that you could look at, I actually saw that Maricopa County, and actually I saw the other day that the city of Phoenix is using a couple of electric pickup trucks. So I reached out to Maricopa County and in their air quality side, and they said, yeah, actually Maricopa County has this huge fleet department and they're really on board with this. So get their contact information, because sometimes your fleet managers really aren't that well versed in electric vehicles. So if they have other peers that they could talk to kind of ask questions, say, hey, what's the maintenance like on this thing? That might also be something to look into.
The last thing I'll say about fleet vehicles, you guys always have a lot, right? Gila River is huge. You're probably, you have one of the biggest reservations in Region 9, right? We have about, 30 or so fleet vehicles at our reservation. The one thing that you got to take into account for too, when we're switching them over, is the downtime of our employees driving off a job site to get gas, because we don't have our own fueling station like at our public works department. They just go to the tribal gas station. So that's, 15 minutes there, 15-minute back to a job site. That's 30 minutes of work that I'm paying someone for that they're not actually working in the terms of like shovel in the ground. And that's if they just go and fill up. But because it's our local gas station, they know all their cousins and, friends, and then they're going inside. And next thing you know, it's 45 minutes before they're back on a job site. So the nice thing is like you get that efficiency from your workforce and employees by coming in, having a fully charged vehicle in the morning, going to the job site, plugging in, and every day it's fully charged. So like just also try to factor in, if you're a tribe, the efficiency for your workforce and how much money that's going to save over the course of a work year of your employees.
So we're doing the same thing where the electric vehicles are kind of thought as like something that stays local. And we've been trying to push, like if we have like a vehicle that needs to go far, like when I drove here, to use a hybrid for now until if the network of charging stations becomes a little bit more.
Till you get your Rivian.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Stakeholder engagement. This is another big one for us. And I'm going to show this better, I think, with this slide, which looks like it didn't come out that well. I don't know if we can. Still didn't come out that well. Well, so one of the challenges I mentioned earlier about setting goals is how do we do that? So this is a really bad diagram now, but at least I've got numbers on there so you can kind of follow the process. So we're going to start with going out to we got 7 districts. So in order for committees and council to approve anything, they really want to know that they've got some buy-in from the community members. So they want to know that we've been out to the districts and made these presentations. So we're probably going to have to do this in kind of like a 2-step district process where we go out and we make this presentation to the districts and we talk about the PCAP that we prepared. We talk about the greenhouse gas emissions that are occurring on the community, very kind of high level terms, but then also get some feedback while we're in that presentation, just kind of show of hands to kind of set a little bit of the direction and tell them about kind of the survey that we're going to put out. We're going to take the initial survey from the PCAP. We're going to refine that with some questions that will kind of really help us focus in on where the community wants to go with respect to greenhouse gases. So once we've got the results from those kind of first 2 pieces, then we can begin to put together our reduction measures and finalize our plan. But now that we've got this plan, we still need to go back out to the districts to present that and say, hey, based on all your feedback from all 7 districts, this is where you guys kind of collectively want to go. Are you guys more or less okay with that? Does anybody have any other input? And then we take that over to committees and council. So educate, direction, solution plan, and then approval. So I got 5 minutes left to give it to EPA, and I apologize, Matthew, to talk a little bit about this one section on intersection with other funding. And I know you got a lot of slides, but I think you guys are just going to skim through them. Sorry, I shouldn't have scared them. They only have a couple slides.
Okay, we're good. Oh, thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Graham Leggett. I work in EPA Region 9. I'll let Matthew introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Matthew Hansen. I'm technical lead, like with Graham, and we represent kind of your regional program team. We also have Sharon Bowen on the line. Definitely kudos to her because she helped us put this presentation together.
Okay. So this slide deck is, it comes from at the end of the workshop in Minneapolis in September. There's this huge, like 80 slide presentation on additional sources of federal funding. Basically what we did here is just like Control F and deleted anything that wasn't directly related to tribes. So now this is down to about, I think, like 20, 25. So still, yeah, we're not going to go through the whole thing. Basically, we have Department of Transportation, Department of Energy, USDA, and the IRS. There's some tax credit things in here. So we really just wanted to like poll you all, see if there's anything of those four that I just mentioned that you'd like to. We can go into detail, with the 5 minutes we have.
So who wants clean energy? Just raise your hand. One, two, three, four. Okay. Next is transportation. Okay, we'll skip that one. Let's see.
Tax credits.
Tax credits. One tax
One,
credit.
two.
Two. Okay.
And then agriculture or USDA. Okay. All right.
So clean energy.
DOE it is.
Oh, right. Actually, wait. Before we jump in, I'm gonna. Can we go back? Slide. I do have a couple updates for you. So this is the US EPA's list of grant programs. It's cross federal wide. So a couple news is that starting, I think, this month, we're going to start updating this on a monthly basis so that and try to really hone in on what's coming up. So please stay tuned to this. This is kind of also how part of how we're going to revamp the technical assistance forums into the next year. And yes,
Good. Okay.
yeah, we're good.
There we go. Okay, Department of Energy. Okay, so the two that I'd really like to draw your attention to are, here we go, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, as well as the Tribal Energy Loan Guarantee Program. So I'm not an employee of DOE, so I can't speak to these in great detail, but we'll send out these slides at the end. So again, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program on this one, and then Tribal Energy Loan Guarantee Program. I'd encourage you to just click on the links here and explore those. As you can see, this one here, up to 20 billion in loans, so that is gigantic. That's like bigger than the entire CPRG program.
So let's go to the disclaimer. The next one. Okay, so now we're going to go into tax credits. Full disclaimer, this is not tax advice. I'm not your CPA, so so next. So one thing that I think we took from the workshop in Minneapolis is elective pay. So I think the key about elective pay is in bold right now is that payments equal to the full value for your clean energy projects. So yeah, there's a lot of money that you can be reimbursed for these clean energy projects. I'm aware that the process is very extensive, and the next deadline is, I believe, this month. So this might be something for next year's season. But we are also, EPA will be part of our Region 9 grantee group. We will be inviting someone that has done this process. So please stay tuned. We will email that meeting out to everybody. So please attend if you're interested in this tax credit. And I think we only have a minute left.
Hello? Can you hear me? All right. Sorry for those who are online, but before you guys leave, we have stickers up here if you want to get some stickers. I see a lot of water bottles. These will look great on your water bottles. But no, that's all I wanted to say. I see people leaving, and I want to be like, no, there's stickers up here. So, but yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you, Ryan, for letting us speak. And everyone, yeah, feel free to come up, Graham and Matthew, if you have any questions.
Yeah.